Close your eyes and imagine a creature that shouldn't exist. Picture something with the height of a modern-day giraffe, standing nearly 18 feet tall. It has a neck as long as a car, a massive spear-like beak, and legs that look like stilts. Imagine this 500-pound monster, as tall as a house, suddenly unfolds two massive leathery wings and launches itself into the sky like a fighter jet. This isn't a glitch or a poorly designed creature from a fantasy novel. This is Quetzalcoatlus northropi, the largest animal to ever take flight in our planet's history. For a long time, scientists looked at its bones and said, "There is no way this thing actually flew." But nature doesn't care about our doubts. Quetzalcoatlus was a masterpiece of biological engineering that defied physics, and dominated the skies of the late Cretaceous. To understand this flying giraffe, we go back to the beginning, to a world where being a baby meant being born ready to fight and fly. The life of a Quetzalcoatlus began in a way that would make a modern bird look lazy. Most birds today are born naked, blind, and helpless, chirping for their parents to bring them a worm. But Quetzalcoatlus followed the super-precocial rulebook of pterosaurs. They were likely born from leathery eggs buried in warm earth. When the shell cracked, out popped a miniature version of the monster, already covered in pycnofibers, hair-like structures that provided warmth. But here is the truly insane part. Researchers believe these flaplings could fly almost immediately. A human baby takes a year to stand up. A baby Quetzalcoatlus was likely taking to the air within hours or days. They had to. In a world full of hungry dromaeosaurs and juvenile T-Rexes, staying on the ground was a death sentence. These tiny flyers lived a high-speed life, darting through the Cretaceous forests, hunting insects and small lizards to fuel a metabolism that was working overtime. They weren't just growing. They were expanding at an aggressive rate, their bones hardening and their wingspan widening by the month. Growing up as a giant pterosaur was a delicate balancing act of physics. To fly, you need to be light, but to be a giant, you need to be strong. Evolution solved this by giving Quetzalcoatlus bones that were hollow and filled with air sacs, similar to a modern bird, but even more extreme. Their bone walls were often only a few millimeters thick, reinforced by internal struts like the frame of a high-end bicycle. During their teenage years, they transitioned from the forest-dwelling life of a small flyer to the open plains life of a giant. This was a dangerous middle phase where they were too big to hide but not yet big enough to intimidate. They had to eat constantly, and we mean constantly. A growing Quetzalcoatlus would have been an opportunistic nightmare, swallowing anything that could fit down its throat. This wasn't a graceful eagle. This was a hungry, gangly stiltwalker that was slowly transforming into the undisputed king of the clouds. When a Quetzalcoatlus finally reached adulthood, it became a biological impossibility. Let's talk about those stats because they are mind-bending. The wingspan of 36 feet, it was as wide as an F-16 Fighting Falcon. Its beak alone was nearly 8 feet long. Longer than most humans are tall. But perhaps the most shocking realization for modern science was how this creature actually moved. For decades, we thought they spent all their time soaring over oceans like giant seagulls. We were wrong. The anatomy of Quetzalcoatlus tells us it was a terrestrial stalker. Think of it as a marabou stork from hell. It spent a huge portion of its time on the ground, walking on 4 limbs. Yes, 4 limbs. It folded its massive wings in half and used the elbows as front feet. It could probably run with a weird vaulting gait, stalking through the ferns and eyeing baby dinosaurs with its keen predatory eyes. When it saw something it liked, it didn't shoot, simply used that massive toothless beak to spear its prey or swallow it whole. Imagine being a young triceratops minding your own business. When a giraffe-sized bird drops out of the sky and gulps your brother down like a chicken nugget. That was the reality of the late Cretaceous. But the biggest question remained, how did a 500-pound animal get off the ground? For years, people thought they needed to run down a hill or wait for a strong gust of wind. But recent computer modeling has revealed a much cooler secret: the quadrupedal launch. Instead of using just their legs like a bird, Quetzalcoatlus used its massive chest and arm muscles to literally pole vault itself into the air. It would crouch down on all fours, then explode upward with a massive push from its front limbs, clearing the ground in a split second before its wings even started to flap. It was an explosive, high-energy takeoff that allowed them to escape predators and reach altitudes where they could catch thermal vents. And in the air, they were the masters of long-distance travel. Scientists estimate that a Quetzalcoatlus could fly for thousands of miles at a time, cruising at speeds of 60 miles per hour. They could travel between continents as easily as we go to the grocery store. They were the ultimate global citizens of the prehistoric world. The flying giraffe wasn't just big, it was smarter at least, highly specialized. Its brain had massive lobes, dedicated to balance and sight. When you are flying a body that large, one wrong move can result in a catastrophic crash that would shatter your paper-thin bones. Every landing was a high-stakes mission. Every thermal air current was a calculated risk. And yet, for millions of years, they thrived. They saw the rise and fall of countless species from their literal bird's-eye view. They were the apex predators of the air, and yet they remained intimately tied to the land. This dual existence, part fighter jet, part terrestrial nightmare, made them one of the most successful lineages of the pterosaur family. They were the peak of their kind, the final evolution of the dragon. But even a king of the air has a weakness, the problem with being a giant. Highly specialized predator is that you are very vulnerable to supply chain issues. About 66 million years ago, that supply chain was permanently severed. When the Chicxulub asteroid hit, the immediate firestorms and the following impact winter destroyed the base of the food chain. Large animals need a lot of fuel. Quetzalcoatlus couldn't just survive on a few seeds or insects, like the small toothless birds that managed to squeak through the extinction. The giant flyers required a constant supply of small to medium dinosaurs and lush vegetation to support the ecosystem they hunted in. When the world went dark and the plants died, the storks from hell found themselves in a world with nothing left to spear. They were too large to hide in burrows and too specialized to pivot their diet. They didn't go out in a fight. They likely faded away as the last of the giant shadows across a dying landscape. So, where are they now? Did they evolve into anything we see today? The short answer is a heartbreaking no. Pterosaurs like Quetzalcoatlus are a completely separate lineage from the birds we see in our backyards. Birds evolved from small, feathered theropod dinosaurs. Pterosaurs, on the other hand, were a sister group to the dinosaurs that took a different evolutionary path and ended in a dead end. When the last Quetzalcoatlus died, that specific brand of giant leathery flight vanished from the universe forever. There is nothing alive today that even comes close to the majesty or the sheer weirdness of the Quetzalcoatlus. We have large birds like the Andean condor or the wandering albatross, but they are gnats compared to the winged titan of the Cretaceous. We study Quetzalcoatlus today not just because it's a cool monster, but because it teaches us about the limits of biology. It proves that nature can take a fragile, hollow-boned creature and scale it up to the size of a plane. It shows us that you don't need feathers to be an ace pilot, and you don't need to be small to be light. The Quetzalcoatlus was it's a flying contradiction, a giraffe that could cross oceans, and a predator that looked like a lawn ornament. It reminds us that for millions of years, the sky wasn't just a place for clouds and rain. It was the territory of a silent, spear-beaked giant that watched the world from above. The next time you see a plane flying high overhead, just remember that 66 million years ago, that shadow could have been alive. It could have been hungry, and it wouldn't have needed an engine to reach the clouds. Long live the memory of the Sky King, the impossible Quetzalcoatlus.